Monday morning's long balls, the headlines of the weekend. We talked about it on Friday quite a bit. Who was in the hotter seat? And I think one of those seats got real hot over the weekend. Manchester United beaten at home by Spurs. Is Erik Ten Hag in more danger than ever?
I mean, it's like one of those things. Like, isn't there some like weird like philosophical math problem where if you always get halfway closer to the wall, you'll never actually get to the wall? That's like Erik Ten Hag right now, right? Like he just keeps inching a little bit closer and a little bit closer and a little bit closer to oblivion. He will eventually get fired. I think that's pretty safe to say because every manager gets fired at some point, unless you're Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United and maybe a couple others. Whether it comes after this loss to Spurs, my feeling is it might. I mean, it is mid-afternoon in England, in Manchester, as you and I do this show, Robert, and we have not yet heard that Erik Ten Hag has been relieved of his duties. As we have instead, we're just all holding our breath. Well, I'm not holding my breath; that would be dangerous, and I don't care about United that much. But I think a lot of people might be thinking, is it coming? Is the end for Erik Ten Hag? Erik Ten Hag, that guy too. Erik Ten Hag, is it nigh, as they say?
Well, you'd think that they're into that cycle where the fortunes of the club at large rest on every single result. It seems, or at least it's playing out that way in the tabloids. Like a big win over Spurs probably would have seen headlines like Manchester United back on track with win over Spurs, but they lose 3-0 at home.
Yes.
And
right.
And just the nature of the loss too, going down within the first 3 minutes of the game in a similar fashion, allowing that goal, a runner, to just split the entire team, similar to their Europa League consolation against FC20, where the player just ran all the way up the field and no one really stopped him. The Spurs did that. Mickey Van de Ven, the fastest player in the Premier League, ran straight through him, crossed the ball, tap in, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, so the way that they open the scoring is certainly a talking point. The red card to Bruno Fernandes, which you teased there in the open, that is also a talking point. And if you want to say anything about Erik Ten Hag and his status as Manchester United manager, and there's enough negative stuff about his tenure to think he's already, done most of the work to get fired, and that whatever happened with Bruno, whatever happened in this particular game, it shouldn't be, it shouldn't rest just on that. Bruno Fernandes picking up a red card is not something that Erik Ten Hag had a direct hand in. He didn't make Bruno go out and do that. And then, of course, there's also the question of whether it should have been a red card in the first place. And you and I have been watching it all morning, like on repeat. And I don't think I know yet, Robert, if I think that that's a red card or not. For anybody who's seen it.
A lot of that comes from an intent. I mean, he pretty intentionally raises his boot towards the knee of the Spurs player. And so how much like damaging contact there was, it's hard to say. Like we said, we've been replaying it to re-examine it, but it did look pretty intentional that he raised his stud towards the Spurs player.
But I mean, he did. I guess it's the studs high part of it, but it's not like he went in with force behind him and tried to spike the Spurs player. He kind of lunges and whips his foot out. It's an intentional foul, I guess, in the sense that he knows he should know he's not going to get the ball. He should know that there's no chance of actually tackling the ball, that this is all about slowing down. Who's it, James Madison? Whoever it is, that this is about something that is not within sort of the right way to play the game. But I don't know that I see it as measuring to, that's endangering the safety of the opponent and you deserve to be sent off. That's crazy to me. I think I'm not normally one to defend Bruno Fernandes, but this is not, to me, this is not a red card offense, and it does bring up that question. Okay, it's still the first half. What happens if Bruno doesn't go off? Because Spurs get two goals on the other side of halftime. So you very much could argue that United's still in that game at 1-0 down, and that, this wouldn't be a 3-0 loss, and we wouldn't be talking about Erik Ten Hag getting fired.
Well, another thing that doesn't help Mr. Ten Hag's case is down in the Chelsea land with Jadon Sancho looking really, really good as he departs Manchester United. Probably doesn't look very good on the United boss either. But the result, 3-0, like you said, the two goals come with 10 men. Maybe they would have put up a better fight, if they stayed at full strength. Garnacho, rockets one off the bar. That goes in. Who knows? But it is what it is. Red card, Manchester United down. But at the same time, so to simplify and go back to Bruno Fernandes, he gets red carded. If he doesn't raise his foot, there's no question. And so if he was truly a captain and truly a responsible player, and one of the most experienced players on that United side, should he even be putting himself in the position to make it a question?
That is a good point. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie and say that, or I'm not going to pretend that Bruno Fernandes didn't do something stupid. He did something stupid. He put himself in a position for a referee to make that decision. And you can argue the decision itself, whether it should be yellow or red, but clearly Bruno should not be lifting his foot to make contact with Maddison's knee as he goes streaking by him, because that is the thing that pushes the referee to have to make a choice. And even if it's a yellow, it's a stupid foul. Like, even if he just gets a yellow for it, it's a stupid foul, and he shouldn't be doing it. Because, I mean, you look again, you watch where he is on the pitch and where his teammates are. There's no reason to be worried. You're in Spurs defensive half. Why is that a foul you need to make it in that part of the field? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's not saving a goal by making that rash challenge. Like you said, he's just in the middle of the park, maybe a little frustrated that they went down early to a silly goal. And I was looking for the word. I don't know if pedantic is the right word or immature, but just that, not thoroughly thoughtful actions by one of United's key players, leaving them shorthanded and really leaving Ten Hag out there in the breeze.
Bad times for United for sure. Good times for Spurs to get that victory after we talked about them on Friday. So, England delivering some nonsense and some tomfoolery. What else we got, Robert? What else is out there?
Meanwhile, in the Iberian Peninsula, Spanish football, the biggest game of the weekend, it was the Madrid Derby. Ends 1-1, but that's not really the biggest talking point, as the game had to be halted and postponed for a few minutes, a few different times, after fans started throwing lighters and other nefarious objects onto the field.
The objects were nefarious? The intentions were definitely nefarious. I'm not sure the objects themselves can be imbued with nefariousness.
Well, okay. So the nefarious objects comes with, there was a bag in the article I read. It said a bag of unknown contents.
I see.
And that seems nefarious to me.
It's like a Schrodinger's bag. Like, we don't know what's in it until we open it up, and then okay, yeah, all right. Meanwhile,
all right, so the game ends 1-1, but it really all set off after Real opened the scoring, and the goalie, who many Atleti fans call a bit of a turncoat because he was once a Atleti player, he celebrated big after the Real
goal.
Courtois.
Yeah,
Thibaut Courtois.
That's what we're talking about here. Yeah,
celebrated big time after the goal, which infuriated the fans quite a bit.
Yeah, look, the tensions, run high. The rivalry is intense. I mean, we may, I think, outside of Spain, and I'm not going to pretend to be a Spanish football expert, but
you spent some time there this summer.
Outside of Spain, we all focus on the Clásico. It makes sense that we do. El Clásico is usually the game that determines the champion of Spain. It's Real Madrid and Barcelona. Those are the big clubs. But Atleti thinks of themselves as a big club. They have won titles in the Simeone era. They have achieved things and brought trophies to the Metropolitano. And clearly there's something there. Now, you mentioned I went to Spain. I told people I adopted Atleti because I didn't want to be a front runner and pick Real Madrid. Well, now I'm questioning my decision based on the behavior of the fans. And look, I should have known better, right? Should have done a little bit more thinking about it because it's not like Atleti fans have not been known to do certain nefarious things to your word in the past. And there was already leading into this game word out that the Atleti fans in that particular end of the stadium were going to be wearing balaclavas and covering their faces. And I think the word was that they intended to say things to Vinicius Jr. that are horrific and should not be said by anybody to anybody else, but especially in that kind of setting. So this take over to throwing things at Courtois, which, by the way, let's also say that as denizens of a CONCACAF nation, we are familiar with things being thrown on the pitch. This is not for us. It's like whatever. This happens every week in CONCACAF somewhere. But it shouldn't happen, right? It obviously shouldn't happen. And it took Simeone going over, and it took some of the Athletic players going and trying to calm down those fans and explain to them, look, this is not what you can't do this. You have to stop doing this. And I've seen Guillaume Balaguer talk about this on video recently in the aftermath, and he said there are laws in place to make sure these people cannot go to games, that they cannot impact the events of the field this way, and it's up to the Spanish authorities to apply those laws. And that's, we're going to talk more about Spanish football and some of the culture things that have happened recently, but this is clearly a problem for Spanish football that goes beyond just, we're going to deal with it on a case by case basis. There's something else at play here that really needs to be dealt with. And then of course there's the result. And Atleti gets the equalizer and they split the points with Real Madrid, and that's going to have an impact on the title race, which it's still early everywhere, but it's going to have an impact on the title race, as is the other game that you've alluded to, Robert, which is what?
Osasuna shock Barcelona 4-2. I caught the highlights of this. Some really fantastic goals. Osasuna all over Barcelona in this. I think this is the first time they've gotten a win over Barcelona since 2020 and the biggest scoreline in over 10 years.
Yeah, this is obviously a surprise result. Hansi Flick's time at Barcelona had been going so well. I mean, it's
First bump in the road. Major bump in the road.
Yeah, 7 wins from 7. They had given up they had given up 5 goals in those 7 matches up to that point, up to this match against Osasuna. What was at play here and why it went this way? Maybe it's just an aberration. Maybe it's something that Hansi Flick can move past quickly. I mean, no one's going to say he hasn't done a very good job so far. And obviously, we're witnessing the arrival of a truly generational talent, perhaps, in Lamine Yamal, who did score in this loss again. So, no one's going to panic in Barcelona. But as you said, these are dropped points. Like we're talking about things happening in the early part of the season, and sometimes we act like they're not as important as things that happen down the road, but the points are all the same. And if you drop points now, then it might affect you later, no matter how good you are later in the season, because you have opponents who can be just as efficient at collecting points based on their own schedules and their own abilities.
After just 8 games, Barcelona still holds a 3-point lead over Madrid. Long ball number 3, FIFA announces the Club World Cup venues. Strange topic, but worth noting. We like to bring all the news back home here. So 2025 FIFA Club World Cup is to be held in the United States. The venues were announced over the weekend, and it is East Coast heavy.
It is East Coast heavy. Yeah. Here's the actual stadiums, Robert. Mercedes-Benz Atlanta, TQL Stadium, Cincinnati, Hard Rock Stadium, Miami, Geodis Park, Nashville, MetLife Stadium, New York, New Jersey. That's New Jersey. Bank of America. This is FIFA's listing, by the way. So if you're like, why is FIFA's the one that put these things together? Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Inter and Co Stadium. That's the Orlando City Stadium. So two Orlando venues, one the big football stadium, the other the MLS building, the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles, Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Lumen Field in Seattle, and Audi Field in DC. So the only West Coast, and here's the geographical breakdown. The only West Coast are Seattle and LA, and not this there's something else at play here, right? Remind us what else is happening around this time.
This also will be running concurrently with the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup, of course. And so that's going to be on the West Coast. So we're going to have, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the pushback that's going on here and kind of organizations kind of at odds with each other, players speaking out against this competition, and schedule congestion left and right. That Nashville venue, is that the football stadium or is that Nashville Stadium?
That's Nashville Stadium. That's Nashville's MLS building. It holds 30,000. It's the biggest, I believe it's the biggest soccer specific stadium in the country at this point.
And that graphic also has the logo there, which I hadn't really taken too much notice. The CWC Club World Cup.
Quite terrible. It looks like Mickey Mouse melted or something. I'm not quite sure. Or like Wario and Mickey Mouse got together and had a baby, if you know those references. That's it's not good. It's not good. I don't know why they thought it was, but it's not good, Robert. Yeah.
All right, so Ten Hag's hot seat, mayhem in Madrid, and FIFA announcing the Club World Cup. That's today's long ball.